Right. That's our live stream.
Yep, should be good to go.
Right, everybody, we'll declare the meeting open at 4:31 PM and just first please stand for the karakia and then we'll begin items. Thank you, everybody. All right, so first up on the agenda, we have apologies. So we have Sam McDonald with an apology for lateness. And we have Linda Chen with an apology.
Happy to move.
Happy to move, Bridget. Happy to second, Suresh. Right, thank you. Then moving on to number 2, declarations of interest. Now it's been made aware to us that James Goff has a conflict in this one, so won't be able to vote on the Address Road, Glandover Road part of the agenda, and also won't be able to speak to it, so he'll just sit back on the table when that comes up, so everyone is aware. Any other declarations that anyone has raised? If anything comes up during the meeting, just let us know. Moving on to number 3, confirmation of the previous minutes. Could I have a mover for the previous minutes, please? David, thank you. Yep. And a seconder.
Yep.
Great, thanks, James. All in favour? Against? Carried. Great. From there, we move on to number 4, public forums. Now, Alice, I think we've got you on Zoom there. You can hear us all right?
Yeah.
Great.
Yes,
yeah. That's great. Okay, cool. We've got 5 minutes and that includes any type of question. So feel free to start whenever you're ready. Oh, you muted again. There we go.
All right, all good to start?
Yep, go for it.
Hello, everybody. I'm Alice Holmes. I'm speaking on behalf of my daughter, Bina Holmes. So on the 15th of May 2024, my daughter was travelling home from Christchurch Girls High to St Albans, and she was going through the Bearley-Carlton Harper Ave intersection. And as she was going through there, heading east down Bearley Ave towards home, a driver failed to give way to her coming from the Carlton Mill slipway, and hit her on her bike. So the driver admitted fault and said that she wasn't looking for cyclists. So she said she had looked behind to look for other cars, didn't see my daughter who was in front of her, and then as she went to turn right into the middle lane, had hit my daughter with her car in the back tyre. So there's quite a large volume of vehicle traffic merging right into the middle lane while cyclists and cars are coming through the intersection, if you're familiar with that area. And a lot of the cyclists and cars are looking to go left into the left lane to travel through Bearley, or to turn left onto Papanui Road. And also the cyclists are looking left to go over to the cycle lane, or the painted cycle lane, which is on the far left of Bearley Ave on the road there. Now, I have often thought that road was quite dangerous, and when my daughter first started biking, going to school on her bike when she was in year 9, we did talk about this intersection and taking great care. And I did also say that if she didn't feel safe, to cross at the crossing lights rather than go through the intersection. Of course, she's year 13 now, so she's a bit more of a confident cyclist. She had lights on and her helmet on, but this just really brought to light what I had always thought about that area of road, that it was quite dangerous, and there could be some simple improvements made that would be beneficial for cyclists and also for pedestrians who use that area. So a lot of pedestrians use that area during events that are on at Hagley Park as well, cyclists and pedestrians. You have people coming from Christchurch Girls High, Ackland House, who are walking through that little island where the pedestrian way is there every day. So we've got cyclists, pedestrians and cars using that area. Now, I've talked to a number of people, both friends and other cyclists who have used that intersection in the past and have had to go past that slipway, and the majority of them have said yes, it's not ideal, and it does pose a risk, particularly for vulnerable users like cyclists and pedestrians. So I have had a little bit of a think of how this possibly could have been prevented. Obviously, the driver should have looked, and she did admit fault there. But a really simple thing that would be able to be done, possibly by the board or the council, is to, instead of having a giveaway sign there, if you can't get rid of the slipway, because I know that would be very costly to rejig the whole road. If you can't get rid of the slipway completely and make it lights, then even just installing a stop sign so that drivers must stop there and look for traffic, which they should be doing anyway. But those extra seconds could potentially prevent a serious collision, even a death. I would go so far as to say that, because it literally was a matter of, centimetres where my daughter would have been hit side on, and she possibly could have been seriously injured in that case. So she was very, very lucky. She got away with some bruising and a bung bike, but it could have been a lot worse. So get a stop sign instead of a giveaway sign, the installation of better signage to make drivers aware that there are pedestrians and cyclists that are using that area. And, just big warning, sign, look for cyclists, look for pedestrians. And then the third thing is an improvement with the island area so that there's better visibility there, because at present there are some hedges and things growing up around it. So that's probably the three things I think that could be fairly easily implemented by yourselves, hopefully, and that would be quite cost effective and improve safety in that area. Yes, so that's pretty much the brunt of my contribution there. I do have a younger daughter who will also be going to Girls High in another 3 years' time, and I'm hoping that she will be able to cycle to Girls High without incident, and be able to continue using modes of active transport, which I know that the council is very big on. So yes, that's my contribution. If you have any questions, please ask.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Now, we don't have the ability to make any decisions here, but we do have some transport staff in the room, and we'll raise some questions with them and see if we can get a bit of a report on what options might be available, or if anything's in the works already. And then our team will be able to reach back out to you and let you know what happens as a result of that.
Right, that's great. Yeah, thank you very much for your time and consideration. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, next up, Drusilla, would you like to come up and do public forums? I know you gave me a call a couple of days ago. Yep, come up and take a seat. Yep.
Got it.
Good afternoon. Sorry.
Keep it short and sweet.
Okay, great.
I hate doing these things. But anyway, I brought some paperwork. First of all, I'm working on a couple of other things a chest, a maze for which I'm going to present at the community, the long-term plan, but I'm going around everybody because I don't think I'm going to have time. And that's for Cathedral for the Square. I want to make the city more child-friendly. And we'll do a chess tournament. And I've also got Royal Dolls, and I'll be dealing with Rangiora, RSA, then we'll go to Selwyn and help that area, and then we'll go to the centre of town, and it'll do a 3-year cycle, and we'll go right round. Also, just part of that, I'm also been working on this 9 years. I'm doing a model railway system, and it's based on Sanders Lost Key. The play will be in the Arts Centre probably 226 or 228, but I've got to rate 8,000 to get in there, but I've got 70% of all the props. It's 9 years work, but the architecture is promoting all the buildings in Christchurch 207, and that's based on the Chatham Islands. So I'm just working on that, but while I'm here today, when I've left my card, I come from Bishopdale, and my parents came here in 1966. I went to Papanui when the sawmill used to be across the road. We did the Commonwealth Games, repertory, opera. I did the Commonwealth Games, the Round the World in 80 Days at Jellypool Park. But anyway, I've come here about the clock. I had my twin, I've got a twin who lives in Barrington Ave, ringing me up, really upset. The clock, she went up there. What happened is this clock here is in Bishopdale Mall. A lot of the old families, when we went to Bishopdale, there was only 7 houses behind the garage. So, and there was only 3 married families. So there's been a lot of people, there's a lot of people that we remember that have all gone, and their names are on those bricks. The families donated money. It's been repaired once, but you can't read the names. So that's why I'm here, was just to let you know that my twin has told me that I need to come and see you guys and let you know. So that's why I'm here today, and that's it.
Right, thank you very much. We'll make a note of that, and we'll see if we can, figure out what we need to do to see if we can get those.
Okay, kia ora. Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. Right, moving on to number 5 on the agenda, we have deputations on Juniper and Highstead Reserve Planting Plan, and some students from Royal Vale School will present on that item. So do you guys want to come and take a seat at the front and run us through it? Now we've got 10 minutes for this one, so.
Hey, do you like breathing? I know I do. Why don't we plant some more trees in Juniper Place Reserve? What? The meeting's over. We convinced them.
They need more convincing than that.
They do? I thought that was a pretty good reason.
Me too.
Well, whatever. Just continue like we rehearsed.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, how many times do kids like us get chances in a big project like this?
This is our chance for the making.
A chance to make the world a better place.
It's not much of a difference adding trees, but it is an opportunity to help the world, and we want to be a part of that.
For most of children's life, we sit around while adults do everything for us.
But this time, we will be a part of the improvement.
Kia ora. My name is Jamie, and I'm a Year 6 student and the presenter in the reporter group at the Waimāero School.
Tēnā koutou. My name is Lila, and I'm a Year 6 student at Te Waimāero. I am also a filmer in the reporter group.
Kia ora. My name is Jaden, and I'm a Year 6 student and editor in the reporter group at Te Waimāero School.
Kia ora. My name is Oliver, and I'm a Year 6 student and a writer in the reporter group at Te Waimāero School.
Our school name means the precious line pathway, the Tussock line pathway. This name was gifted to us by Nai Tuahuderi, the tangata whenua of our place.
We would love to incorporate tussock somewhere in Juniper Place Reserve to fit our cultural narrative. At our school, we have a reporter group of around 30 children.
We have had many amazing opportunities, and like some other children, we would not let them fly by us.
We took those opportunities.
One leads to another, and we have articles and video ideas pouring out of our ears.
We have worked on articles with building companies, charities like Phil Bally's, and paper for cheese recycling. We have also worked on videos about Matariki and New Zealand Sign Language for the school.
This has led us to work with the Christchurch City Council on our journey with Juniper Story, which we are so grateful to be here today presenting to you all.
What is Juniper Place used for? Many children from our kudo walk to and from their homes.
We have interviewed a student from our school, who is also a local resident, and she explained that she goes to Juniper Place Reserve to walk her dog each day.
We already love Juniper Place Reserve, but there's always room for improvement, like adding some more native trees.
We also think there needs to be some space for kicking a ball around, but we would also like some swings.
Adding some trees doesn't always look good. It can actually encourage outdoor activities,
which makes us healthier.
You care about our health, right?
I've interviewed Toby, and he has shared with us the revised plans, and we think they are amazing.
We are happy with the amount of trees.
Thank you for listening to us. We appreciate your time.
We are looking forward to working collaboratively with the council to help pick trees and plants to add and to help plant these in Juniper Place.
Don't forget to check out our school website for more videos and articles. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Do you have any questions?
You guys have any questions?
Just to say, fantastic presentation. Clearly, so much thought has gone into it. You all deserve Oscars, but and we can take Toby behind you, who's was very proud of this as well. So fantastic. So we've got it coming up in our agenda. So so we'll be sure to be asking some questions about the reserve when it gets there.
Thank you. Well done. My daughter went to Royal School more than 20 years ago, so I will be telling her tonight what a good job you did. Well done.
Thank you. Thanks.
Guys. Right, so we're going to move to the report for the planting plans for Juniper and High Seed, so we don't make people that are here just for that wait a couple of hours for the Glandoviidris agenda item. So we're moving to number 7 for the planting plans. So Toby, would you like to come up, some quick chat about that?
Pretty hard act to follow, to be honest. I think they've probably covered everything anyway, so.
Okay, cool. Anyone got any questions for Toby on that one?
Got a question. And it maybe it's in the report and it might not be super clear. What is the timeline for what's the duration for the planting going to be? So if we were to say, let's go ahead with it hypothetically, what would that timeline look like?
It would be next planting season, so next year. Yep, so we'll go and we'll meet with the school and we'll start to come up with species. So we'll determine what trees we're going to plant as well. And we'll take the school along the journey with us.
Okay, cool. And just another question. Some of the report, the submitters' feedback talked about some of the issues with some of the trees that are there that might not be best placed for the area. So, for example, silver birches often comes up. Does the planting plan consider anything around how do I put this? The changing of what's there to make sure that what gets planted is best suited for the environment?
Yes, so the new trees that we plant, we take those things into consideration, but we're not planning to remove the existing silver birches as part of this.
I was suitably convinced by the deputation, Mr. Chair, so I'm delighted to move.
Happy to second. So before that, no other questions from anyone? No? Okay, so James is happy to move the staff recommendation. Dave's happy to second. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thanks very much. Thanks for coming in, guys. Now, if you were just here for that agenda item, feel free to leave now because we'll start moving into deputations. Was it your Yeah, that was polished. That was very well done. All right, so now we move on to the deputations on the Glandovey-Idris Safety Improvements Project. Now, we have 11 deputations to go through there, so it just might be worth highlighting that if we can just keep if anyone has any comments that they feel like they need to make, just please try and keep them to themselves, or if your deputation's not up yet, please just save that for then if it comes up as a comment from someone else, because we've got so many to get through, and we're 10 minutes a pop, so there's quite a bit of time to get through, so we need to try and be as concise as we can as well. So please don't think that I'm being particularly rude if I do try and keep things moving along with the time. If we get a bit too close or past that 10 minutes, just every extra few minutes will keep everyone here probably a lot later than they want to be. So please just bear with me if that does come up. With that in mind, the first deputation we have is Richard Osborne. So would you like to come up and get started? Oh, he's not till 5 o'clock. Okay, cool. All right, well, we'll slot him in when he gets here because it's about 8 minutes to 5 now. Next up was Ray or Mary Sefton, or both. Beg pardon? Okay, sure. No problem. John Clements. Sure. Right, so we've got 10 minutes, and that includes time for questions.
I'll try and keep it brief as possible. I made a submission, and I read the report afterwards and thought there were a few things I'd like to pick up on because some of it I disagree with, and some things sort of reinforce what I'm trying to say. So I've lived in Jeffreys Road for 20 years, and it's been a great locality. Lots of cycleways, especially going into town and across town as it stands at the moment. I ride and I walk and I ride a car as well. So looking at my submission as I did today, I wanted to see that the report actually seems to, I want to add to that submission really, because my feeling is that Glandovey Road as it stands at the moment works very well for all users. There's probably a minority of people here today. But the thing is that it works very well because I think there's very good sight lines as it works at the moment. If you want to cross the road, you can see almost 100 metres in every direction, except for right down the end near Fendalton Road Bend. There's no visual distractions to confuse people. If you want to cross the road, if you're able to cross the road, you can just wait until there's time to do it. If you're not able to cross the road, that's another issue. The report, I think, confirms this because they confirm there's a very low occupancy of parking on the road. I think they say 18 to 25% occupancy of parking at any one time, which means that it's reasonably good for actually looking down the road. You're not distracted by all the trucks that are there or things parked on the side of the road. And I did some homework. I read the initial proposal back in August, September last year, and did some counting on the side of the road just to see how cyclists and pedestrians were coping. And as far as I could see, things are working very well. There was the cyclists were coping very well, such as they were, and the crossing people wanting to cross the road had plenty of opportunity to do that. My worry is that any further work that's proposed in options 1 or 2 is going to clutter the road and make it even more difficult. But crucially, and I think this is where the report brings it out, there's low usage by cyclists and pedestrians of the road. From my observations, I reckon there's about no more than about 10 cyclists each way per hour. And the report seems to confirm this. They say it's about 12 to 18 actually, maybe cyclists each way per hour, and there's about 1 or 2 people crossing every 10 minutes, which seems to be pretty low usage. And you can see from section 4.7 of the report, it actually quotes, it says count data, their survey count data did not show a high volume of pedestrian or cyclists, which seems to reinforce what my opinion is. It says under 4.7.1, I think it's misleading because it says there's no information that's presented to support this. They say that this usage may increase if a cycleway were built, but that is maybe an opinion, but there's no evidence to suggest that. And attachment E on page 70, there's an incorrect statement made there. It says there is high demand. Well, it's actually a survey of usage. It's not anything to do with demand, so it's not an appropriate comment anyway. And to say there's high demand when there's low usage actually doesn't make any sense at all. So why is there low usage? I think it's because the neighbourhood on this side of Glandovey Road anyway is very permeable. I watch the people going all through the cut-offs, all through the side lanes, all through the shared paths, on foot and on cycles, and all on scooters. And I think if Glendover Road isn't used very much, it's because people are coping very well with the existing setup as it stands. Why is there low usage? Because there's permeability and there's plenty of traffic crossings as well at the lights or in other places too. Coming to refuges, 3 on Glendover Road, I think was excessive. There's definitely crossing with red and yellow men and women at the lights at the corner, but there's a kilometre in between those. And so it seems sense to have maybe one crossing to help people who are less fast moving or have difficulty crossing the road. So in summary, I think the evidence indicates that to not build options 1 or 2 are not justified on the basis of safety as the information has been presented. You could build, I think, with great use, Refuge 1, midway between the 2 ends of Glendover Road. I can't really speak for Idris, Glendover Road, which would mean somewhere between Brindlewood and Garrick Roads. Although I noticed that the option 2 suggests at the end of, or close to the end of Brindlewood Road. I think building a refuge would be very sensible, preferably without the speed cushions, which is just an annoyance and don't do anything, but let's have 40k speed limit. That'd be quite useful in due course. I wouldn't use the stop signs, because if you use the stop signs, you just get the same sort of thing happens just down the road here where people kill themselves at the entrance to Garrick Road and Jeffreys Road and Brindlewood Road and Jeffreys Road. If they don't kill themselves, they're very close to it. People just don't respect stop signs. Giveaway signs would be, I think, I was thinking about it earlier, an achievable outcome maybe would result if you had giveaway signs. And the upshot of that would be a road that actually works perfectly well into the future. You'd have to build, if your recommendations were for one refuge, you'd save the best part of $1 million. And any money that is spent on that refuge would fit in well with doing I think it's pavements need redoing at some stage. So I don't think any evidence that's being presented actually supports option 1 or 2. Any questions?
Yeah, great. Any questions for anyone to start with? Bridget?
Thank you so much, John, for your presentation. You just made a comment about if there was to be a refuge. Where would you like that to be if you had to choose it?
Well, I think if I had difficulty crossing, I'd cross at the lights at Fendalton Road or on Idris corner there. But, that's quite a long way. So halfway in between, that's 500 metres. That places it roughly between Brindlewood and Garrick. So that you don't have to walk too far if you're in a wheelchair or if you're really worried about crossing a road or have difficulty with that.
But you feel like the lights that are there currently?
Well, I watch people, they work very well. Obviously, it's very useful if you happen to be down at one end or another. If you're starting or you're coming down Garrick and wanting to cross, then you might not need an island, but obviously some people might.
Thank you.
Questions from anyone else there? One from me. What's your view on the heavy vehicle traffic going down Glendover, or even just the volumes of traffic? Is it something which is a bit of a problem at any particular time, do you find, or is it something which hasn't changed materially over the years? It's just something which some people face, but...
Yeah, I think the congestion you sometimes get is queuing to get onto Fendalton Road.
Yeah.
And around the corner, it comes back to Brindlewood, maybe a little bit further. And I think during that peak time there, which is probably quite predictable during the morning on a wet day, then yes, you would have difficulty crossing. You'd have to go a little bit further away, maybe if you're on foot, or you could walk down to the lights and cross there, which would be a sensible thing to do. But in terms of the traffic, Glendover Road is obviously quite well used. I have got no data on how much, but it seems to be something where vehicles of all sizes seem to very satisfactorily use the road. And there's plenty of space between the vehicles. It's not like it's a continuous traffic like a motorway or anything like that. So I really enjoy riding a bicycle. I use the bicycle all the time down the cycleways, but I think in terms of taking a road that's working perfectly well, you could save best part of $1 million by just letting it be for the time being. Yeah, I guess.
Right, if we've got no other questions, thank you very much for your time. Right, the next deputation was James Walding. Oh, actually, sorry. Richard's arrived. So actually, we'll skip back to the top of the queue there. Richard Osborne, would you like to come up to the front?
Thank you.
And we've got 10 minutes, including time for question.
I don't think I'll even need that.
No.
Afternoon, thank you for hearing me. My name's Richard Osborne. I'm speaking as a private individual, not as a member of any organisation, but also as a resident. I live on Idris Road. I didn't want to get into the scheme per se. There was just a couple of small components of it that I wanted to comment on. I saw there was a recommendation to remove some of the pedestrian refuges. We are in favour of retaining the one just beside Snowdon Road. That's close proximity to where we live. We often see people cross on that location. It's not easy in terms of the sight lines to get across there. So I wasn't quite sure from the plans whether the recommendation was to retain that or not, but either which way, I'm here before you today kind of recommending from our perspective as a local resident that that's retained if at all possible, regardless of whatever else you decide to do with the scheme. The other thing I just wanted to raise as well was the landscaping, and it's a broader issue which is not so much something that can be solved by the scheme itself. But my observation has been as someone who's lived on Idris Road for a number of years and previously in Bradnell Road, that the character of Fendalton is really built a lot around the old character buildings, the big sections and the mature trees. Clearly post-quake, a lot of those character buildings got knocked down. We've got intensification happening across the area. It's very desirable. And the mature trees are going at a pretty quick rate of knots. Council has understood this. This is not just a Fendalton phenomenon, but it's a citywide phenomenon. They've produced their urban forest plan, which talks about, you know, increasing the level of tree coverage across the city. One of the ways they look at doing this is increasing street tree planting. I was disappointed to see the scheme had a minimal number of trees recommended in terms of the replanting. I think there's a few agapanthus or something like that adjacent to the ped refuges. And I just thought, well, if you're genuine about your urban forest plan and wanting to increase the amount of tree cover across the city, here's a really good opportunity for you to kind of do more. We know that Fendalton's going to be intensified. We know that the mature trees are going to be further reduced. This is where you get to make a kind of a difference in terms of doing some vegetation planting as part of your proposal to upgrade your streetscapes as well. So seemed like an opportunity missed to me. I know there's issues with services under the ground that can be a challenge, but that is also something that can be addressed with the right plants, the right trees, and with some work in terms of determining where those services sit. So correct placement can help address it. So those are the two issues I just wanted to bring to the community board's attention. I didn't have any observations on the scheme per se. So it was really just the ped refuge at Snowdon Road and the overall lack of landscaping, which I felt was something that could be better addressed. Happy to take questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions from anyone there? No? Great, nice and clear.
Got off
very much.
pretty easily. Thank you.
Coming in. Right. Next up, we had James Walden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and tēnā koutou katoa. I want to start by thanking the board and the council and also staff for the time that's been put into this project over, as we know, many years. I want to look at first where we came from, because I think it bears on where we should end up in a problem of unintended consequences and, in particular, imbalance. Glendowie and Idris roads were nice roads, and they balanced the interests of residential amenity of those who lived there and of other road users. In 2013 to 14, the intersection at Idris and Glendowie was changed from a roundabout with mature trees in it to a large-scale intersection, and with that, landscaping and trees either side of that series of roads was also removed. That change brought with it unintended consequences, or at least consequences that weren't fully consulted on. And they included notably skewing the balance towards increased vehicle and heavy vehicle usage, with the consequent problems of noise and vibration, which was reported widely by residents and still is reported by a number of residents, understandably. Large vehicles are a problem, particularly when they're moving at any sort of speed or are fully loaded. The interests of residential amenity and the health and safety of residents and non-motorised road users were undermined. An association approached the council seeking balance. Here we are today, we've got 3 different options. I'd suggest that we can dispense with 2 fairly quickly. Option 3 lacks merit. It simply leaves the problems which have remained largely for 7 years and will do so to the detriment of residential amenity and the health and safety of residents and other road users. Option 2 has some but limited merit. The problem there is that it reduces the proposed number of pedestrian crossings in option 1 from 5 down to 1, and those crossings, which I'll turn to soon, serve important purposes. Option 1 has substantial merit, but it has some, I suggest, avoidable quirks or consequences. The most notable of which is an extraordinary loss of parking, particularly on one side of Glandowie Road West, which would stand in contrast to almost every other residential street of its type in Christchurch, which has parking on both sides and outside houses. I want just to turn to option 1 in a bit more detail in the various proposals. Excuse me, sir, can you speak up? I must, I don't like keeping hearing it. 5 pedestrian crossings, I support that. Those serve several purposes. They ensure safe crossings are possible at suitable intervals, and that's just not the intervals which can be reached by people who have a high level of mobility, but including the disabled and those with family and the elderly. They serve an important function in that regard. Secondly, they calm vehicle traffic, and that's an overt purpose of these ones, with the intention that they have raised judder bars. They may be an inconvenience to some people, I understand that, but that doesn't take away from the broader community service that we've seen these types of features installed on so many roads across Christchurch, and indeed are even being installed on roads such as Riccarton Road and Lincoln Road, roads on which it wouldn't have been countenanced years ago. Third, they return with their planting, whether it be agapanthus, which some of us happen to like, or something more robust, at least some of the residential lost amenity. Uncharacteristically, I agree with Mr. Osborne. I think that the street planting can be improved. I was somewhat surprised to read that a developer, Mr. Holloway, made a submission offering some planting and the council staff couldn't find space for extra planting down Glandowie Road West. I suspect that residents could find some. Second, the change to Fendalton-Glandowie intersection. I support the increased curb height. We should all know from 2014 the problems with trucks in particular mounting the curb, causing damage. I see it's currently got marks from having been mounted, deterring pedestrians and undermining their safety. The problem, of course, is those trucks are too big or going too fast. In that regard, I support better signage deterring heavy vehicles, but I think that it should be a restriction, which is possible, rather than a deterrence. And I think regardless of whether you select deterrence or restriction, it should be matched by a sign at the other end of Glandowie West. It is only by having signage at both ends that the pattern of usage by large vehicles will be deterred. If you're used to going one way on a route, it's very difficult to decide to go a different way when you return. I'm not supportive of, as I understand it, the change in the pedestrian crossing at Glandowie Fendalton being moved slightly further along. It seems to me that that has potential to obscure from visibility pedestrians who are approaching from Fendalton Road and obscure from the visibility of those pedestrians, the vehicles approaching from Fendalton Road. The reason why crossings are normally at an intersection so that vehicles can be seen by all and the pedestrians can be seen. Problem here is the behaviour of the heavy vehicle traffic. The solution should focus on the control of that traffic rather than interfering with what is a conventional placement of a pedestrian crossing throughout New Zealand. Lower speed limits. I support the lower speed limits. I've read the submissions and I understand some people say that these roads seem okay to cycle on and we don't need lesser speeds. It may be so if you're a sophisticated or you're a competent cycler. It may be so if you can cross the road swiftly. It may be so if you don't have children in tow. But for many people, these types of roads are difficult to negotiate. And I appreciate that there have been reports that there isn't that much cycling. I think a core theme of the council's analysis, not only here but also around New Zealand, is that the greater the number of vehicles and the greater the number of heavy vehicles on roads, the greater deterrence to use. And we have to encourage use, and that can be done by controlling traffic. The issue of these cycle lanes is slightly more vexed, and of course the difficulty with option one is the extraordinary degree of parking which is removed. And that in itself creates imbalance. And the community goes from the imbalance of heavy vehicles and too much traffic for the classification of the road to the imbalance of a almost complete loss of parking on one side and restricted on the other. And I think that creates its own problems. First, obviously, is that the no stopping makes it impossible to drop people off for some outside their home. And that's going to impact on dropping off, obviously, the able-bodied, but also the vulnerable, the elderly, the disabled. And they now will have to do U-turns to drop people off and then cross the road, both creating and compounding the problem. Second, as Glendoby Road housing becomes more intensified, inevitably there'll be more pressure on the spaces. Third, I see those council surveys, and I'm not questioning their integrity, but were done during a weekday. During weekends, it's not uncommon to see a group of cars parked outside a series of houses, no doubt for a function. And that points to an important issue. It's not just the number of parks, but their proximity to homes, and homes on both sides of the road, which are important. Both sides need to have parking. Option two, of course, purportedly was directed at enabling more parking, but of course it fails to control much of the 2013-14 consequences by reducing the pedestrian crossings to one. The gulf between option one with 5 crossings and option two with 1 is inexplicable, as is the lack of other options provided. Turning back in time, when residents approached the council in 2017, it didn't see the removal of parking as a consequence. It sought in terms of cycle lanes for the cycle lanes that had been marked during those works at the Glendoby-Idris intersection to be brought into line with council decision-making and policy. They were required to be 1.5 metres in width. They weren't. They were as narrow as 0.8 of a metre in places, and that in itself posed a risk. That work was, to the credit of the council, done after some efforts by the association. The view was taken that if the roads were the subject of sufficient traffic control, they would be sufficiently safe for cyclists without the need for cycle lanes. And the written submission which started this process expressly stated that if Glendoby Road West could become a neighbourhood greenway, then cycle lanes would not be needed on it. And we all know there are many roads in Christchurch which either naturally or because of controls have a level of traffic which enables cycling to occur without the need for cycle lanes. I think cycle lanes at the cost of parking is a trade-off which needn't occur if the traffic is controlled, as is planned under option 1. But it simply can't be right to address the problem of the 2013-14 intersection by directing the solution at the residents' parking and amenity rather than the cause of the problem, which is the composition and speed of vehicular traffic. And we all know that the council has a remarkable range of options to achieve control of traffic. Finally, and this is not said with any pejorative intent, but we'll all be aware of the time frame that this has taken. I'm encouraged that it's before you. I'm grateful for your time, and I realise that the council itself will have to make a decision as well. But could I urge you to undertake decisive steps to make the tweaks, which certainly I suggest would make option one workable, and have that work undertaken as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We don't have any time for questions with that, but that was very concise and provided a lot of information. It was very valuable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, next up, Fiona Bennett.
Is Blue Meat on?
Yes, it should be, yep.
All right. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Fiona Bennett toko ingoa. Thanks for having me today. I used to live on Jeffreys Road and my parents still live in the area, so I frequently cycle down Glendowie, Fendalton and Idris roads. If cyclists of all ages, abilities and confidence levels felt safer, they would use Glendowie and Idris roads as a more direct route instead of weaving through the back streets and alleyways. On-street parking is a luxury, not a right. Safety of vulnerable road users, not private car storage on public land, should be prioritised. There are many schools, shops and the university in this area which would all benefit from more equitable access on bicycles or foot, with or without a bus trip included. We all need to be able to choose how we get around the city, not be forced to drive due to lack of safe cycling and pedestrian infrastructure. You should be ashamed at the lack of cycling infrastructure in this community board area. Constant delays to the major cycle routes and lack of implementation of approved cycle lanes, for example, Waimāero Road, show a lack of consideration for vulnerable road users. Please reduce the speed limit to 40 kilometres an hour. Unprotected cycle infrastructure is less safe than separated cycle infrastructure, so reduced speeds are needed to ensure crashes, reduce the chance of death or serious injury. Please don't vote for option 3, do nothing. Either option 1, which is the preferred but acknowledging the budget constraints, or option 2 are the only options that should be considered today. Thank you, and I'm happy to take questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions from anyone on that one? Roger?
Thank you, Fiona, for coming to present. Very concise and very clear where you stand with what we have in front of us today. I just wanted to ask, when you talk about equitable access, what about those who are vulnerable and there needs to be access for them who are not in a position to be able to cycle?
Actually, a lot of disabled people take the bus or they do ride tricycles. So I think we always assume that vulnerable people are driven everywhere in a car. But if there was an option, they would actually use a tricycle or adapted mobility or whatever it is. There is, obviously, there's still going to be car access. We're not removing car access by making it safer to cycle. Does that answer your question?
You've answered it. That's good to hear your opinion on it. Thank you.
Any other questions from anyone else there? Awesome, thank you very much for coming in. All right, next up, Anne Scott. Come and take a seat. Anna.
You got.
Anne, sorry.
Doesn't matter, whatever. Kia ora koutou, ko Anne Scott tōku ingoa. I'm here to speak on behalf of Spokes Canterbury. Next slide, please. So cycling can be safe, it can be practical, it's healthy, and it can be fun, Aaron. Local cyclists, and so when you're thinking about the Glendowie Road and Idris Road changes, you need to think about what local cyclists are looking for. So we want safer connections for local destinations, in particular the schools. We want safer connections to major cycle routes for commuting. We want safer road crossings for both pedestrians and cyclists. We want safer speeds because that makes it safe for everybody. And we want more investment locally to encourage mode shift. Next, please. So this is a picture I took of Glendowie Road on Sunday. you can see a number of cyclists in the picture. There's a father with his two children and they're cycling down the footpath because it's the safest place to be. And you've got a male cyclist who's on the road and quite happy to be there and moving actually at quite a speed, even though you can't kind of see that. And you can see that it's actually quite quiet. Now, Glendowie Road is interesting because at the very busiest times, you don't see a lot of cyclists who are not confident. You see the really confident, I have to say male cyclists who really don't mind the traffic that's sort of going everywhere. But at quieter times, different people come out. And those people are often on cycles, they're often walking dogs, they're often pedestrians, walking to and from places. And what we want to see is we want to see these cyclists go to school across this road and various other places. So in terms of, it's an important connector road to major cycleways and destinations. Cycleways, fewer parked cars and safer bends on this particular road will appeal to a wider range of cyclists, more than what you're seeing here now. It truly will improve on Glendowie Road. Refuges gets less confident cycles across these busy roads and into safer cycling areas. And there are safer cycling areas on the wide number of streets around. And these changes will help a safer, more livable neighbourhood. Next, please. Next one as well, thanks. So on Glendowie Road, we support the cycle lanes on both sides, the 3 pedestrian refuge irons, the speed cushions, the green stripes at intersections, which do make a lot of difference in safety, but we really like flexi posts on the left-hand bends. On this road in particular, people are cutting these left-hand bends quite dramatically, and they're going into existing cycle facilities. The planned 40k speed reduction will be really useful, and the heavy vehicle restrictions. Heavy vehicles are a particular problem at the Fendalton-Glendowie Road intersection, and would much rather we encourage those heavy vehicles to actually go down Idris Road and then cut around, or go down Jeffreys Road and cut across. Next, please. Idris Road is a really important route for confident cyclists, both for commuting and the boys' high school students who I prefer would not be on that road. It's always going to be a very busy road, and it's not really going to increase the number of cyclists that are going down there. The critical thing for Idris Road is to have safe ways across for pedestrians and less confident cyclists. Next, please. So we do support the cycle lanes, the 2 pedestrian refuge irons, speed cushions, the green stripe across the intersections, and the stop signs. Stop signs do make a difference in terms of vehicles moving into cycle lanes. And we'd like to see them on Stratford, Roxton and Snowdon. We agree with the Fendalton and Glendowie Road intersection improvements and the other improvements that the council has recommended. Next, please. There's one other area that is really problematic, and that's the Idris Road, Jeffreys Road. And I'd really like to see an upgrade of the refuge near the St. Patrick's Catholic Primary School. And there are children going across this crossing also to get to Fendalton. The same kind of upgrades that you see at other places. For some reason, the traffic does not see this refuge at all. They just continue through at significant speed. And you see children trying to cross here and having problems. And I've had problems on this intersection as well. So I'd like to see, you see the diagram there of trying to get less confident cyclists across Jeffreys Road, down to the wee refuge, back up through Jeffreys Road, down Garrick Street or Brynwer Road, and then back into Glendowie Road. Next, please. This is my view only, so please take my spokes hat off. I think that there should be 3 crossings on Idris Road, Snowdon Road, Roxton Terrace and Jeffreys Road, and 1 crossing on Glendowie at Brynwer, but only if the speed is reduced on Glendowie to 40 or less, and that the other changes go ahead. So thank you for listening to me. Is there any questions?
Thank you very much. Aaron?
Why do you say the only if?
Because Glandovey Road will only be safe enough to cross if the speed goes down as well. So it's either the speed goes down and we have one refuge, or we have the 3 refuges and the speed stays at what it is.
Right. Okay. Clarifies.
Bridget?
Thanks, Anne, for your presentation. I just wanted to know, with your experience, when you've got people who, when there's demand for cyclists, do we want to be encouraging people to be using main cycleways like the new Northern Link?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So if we added a cycle lane into this, would that detract from that?
No, because you've got to get across. So, if you're coming from from the unicycle and you want to get across into the other side to the, what you'll do is you'll go through, you'll probably go onto, if you're a confident cyclist, you go down Idris Road, okay, to get across to Jeffreys Road. You'll cut through Jeffreys Road, you'll hit the Northern Arterial and you'll go north. If you're a reasonable confident cyclist, you might go through Glandovey Road, go up to Jeffreys Road and then go across. If you're a less confident cyclist, you'll come across through Fendalton Park to Waifatu Street, through to Jeffreys Road and then Jeffreys Road across. So that's why that crossing is really important at the St. Patrick's School.
Right, sorry, I'm just meaning for when we're looking at these 2 different options that we've got in front of us, and there's a real focus on the cycleway, the cycle lanes for both options.
Yes.
I guess my question was just, it's not so much about that specific crossing point with St. Patrick's School. It's more to do if you're creating a cycle lane, if you're putting, you're giving it putting a lot of money into it, is that what we want to be doing when there is a new northern line that's been created that we want cycles to go through?
It's too far to the north, to the east, for the people who live in the kind of Fendalton Memorial Avenue area. So you're probably adding a couple to 3K on to get at least a couple of K to get there. So you actually do need that cut through. You do need a way of getting across.
You need those 3 extra Ks for the implementation of these new cycle lanes. For those 3 extra Ks would be helpful.
Yes, because you get someone who is not as fit as some others. That's a long way to actually, and particularly if you live in that particular area. If you're living on those blocks around that area, you can't go to the Northern Arterial and then come back home. It just doesn't work.
Thanks, Anne.
Last question.
You made a comment about the less confident cyclists using the Waifatu. What's the problem with that?
There is no problem with that. There's no problem at all. But what we do need to do is there is a demand for, particularly on Glandovey Road, for some people for more people to use the cycleways through there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much for your time. That was very informative, and we'll take some good notes there to our staff when we get to that point. So thank you very much for coming in. Next up is Chris Anderson and Vincent Holloway.
Hello, everyone. Thanks
Good evening.
for listening to us. Also, thanks to Geezer, and I think Richard's here, for years of sort of petitioning certain council groups to get to this point. So thanks very much for that, and also thanks to Hannah and her team. I don't know where Hannah is, for doing all the work and putting together, I think, a considered sort of number of proposals. Essentially, we are of the mind that there can be significantly more sort of planting and tree coverage installed in both our and Glendowie Road. That's sort of a thrust of where we're streets, reduces traffic flow and puts off sort of large vehicles from going down streets. So we think that you can probably actually keep the majority of the car parks, and that's I know it's hard to read that. You can probably keep the majority of the car parks in essence, have the cycle lanes, but also have your traffic there as well. And what that'll do is it'll narrow the roads and actually force people to be slower, and it'll actually force trucks to not go down that way. Within Hannah's proposal, and again, all due respect to her, I see option 4 did sort of comment on further planting, and that was sort of kiboshed on the basis that it was cost prohibitive and it was going to be tough to install due to the certain infrastructure. But we're sort of the mind that that should be canvassed a bit further, and there's certain things that you can do to work around that. So I don't know if you can go to the next. There's just a little, yeah. If you go to the left-hand side of that 0.1, see where that child is on that
very left-hand
side. That's essentially what we're thinking. You can achieve and get to where you want to get to. And I had written down some submissions here, but in essence, that's where we're driving, really. But anyway.
I mean, I read all the submissions and they were really interesting, and there's obviously a lot of different opinions there. Everyone was sort of, the general consensus was that everyone hated agapanthus, but but I do sort of see that, like, there's a lot of different people wanting different things, right? There's different users down there, and I'm building some houses down there on the corner of Idris and Glendowie, one of which for my parents, and I'm building a house up at the other end at the Fendalton end, and that's kind of the two demographics I suppose you have in the street now. You obviously have the older people like my parents who have been living there, or they haven't, but who have been living there for years. And I saw some submissions from people who have been living there since the 1970s, and people like me who are just going to start living there. And you have all these contradicting opinions and requests. And I sort of think that, one major thing, personally not a major one for me, but one major thing from the community that I could see is that everyone wanted to keep car parks because it was going to cause all sorts of issues. And people also wanted to be able to bike, which is cool. I'm a cyclist as well in the summer. I never bike down Glendowie. I always come up through the park, up Matai Street, come past St Barnabas and up into Glendowie that end, because I find Idris Glendowie far too unsafe and Rossall too unsafe. And I'm pretty confident, but confidence is what gets you knocked off your bike, really, because when you're scared, you're probably safer. But and so we sort of think that this way here, by making the road a wee bit narrower and planting trees, and either making it narrower completely or making it narrower by planting a tree every sort of 50 metres or so, you would really deter people from speeding. Because I know just naturally, Glendowie Road's about 13 metres wide, and another street which I measured was Ackermans Road, and that's about 9 metres wide. And I seriously doubt you'd be able to get up to 60 kilometres an hour down Ackermans. I mean, you'd be very keen, but I even find I may have sometimes been able to easily pick up to 60, 65 k's down Glendowie because it's just natural. Such a wide road. Hardly any traffic on it a lot of the time of the day. Peak hour obviously gets heaps. So I just sort of think doing trees, narrowing the road a little bit, possibly losing the agapanthus will seriously, naturally slow traffic down, deter heavy road users, and actually make it a lot safer for everyone, and sort of give everyone what they want, basically. like within reason, because if you go too far one way, there's going to be a lot of unhappy people. And I know that like one thing that stuck out in the submissions to me was car parking. You take car parking away from these people, they're going to freak. And also like for $900,000, I mean, it's sort of approximately, I'd say about 60 people's rates for a whole year down Glendowie Road. So to spend that, when you look at it in that sort of thing, when you're thinking that they're not committing to anything else in the city for a whole year, they're just doing this upgrade, is it really worth it? And are they actually going to be, generally, are they going to be happy down there with that change? And I think not, based on the submissions, because like they are fairly negative. But I'm in favour of, personally, I like biking. I'm not a major car park fan, and I think there should just be more trees. Yeah.
Thank you. Could you just go to, there's an image of Chester Street East on one of those slides. I think, is it the next one over? Yeah, top right. So that's Chester Street in the 80s. And then there was, I read this the other day, there was some sort of policy whereby they decided to beautify it. And that's the result on the right, you know, and I think that sort of planting and that sort of canopy just shows you what you can do. And again, without reinstating, keep repeating myself, that's how I think you're going to slow down traffic and get to where you want to get to.
You'd be keen to get up to like a high speed on Chester Street East. And the other thing is, and I'm sure a lot of people in this room are interested in this, is that you'd seriously increase property values. When you look at those, I mean, I know we're not all here for that, but when you look at those two pictures, like what street are you going to buy a house on? And I think that's important as well. Like we're all here as ratepayers paying to hopefully get benefit. And one benefit we can have is definitely a more beautiful city and like in isolation, a more beautiful street. And I'm specifically talking about Glendowie for my own selfish interests.
Yeah.
But,
And lastly, there's actually evidence which says that the shade created by tree canopy decreases the costs of the council with respect to road maintenance, because the shade actually keeps the roading relatively cool, and it's the heat that creates the problem. So I guess that's material as well. That was pretty much, I think, what we wanted to.
Yeah, sorry, we went on a bit.
Okay, I've got a question. One, a little unfair comparison because one's a winter, one's a summer photo. So both summers would have been good, and classic cars win it for me. But the question,
but there's no leaves on no trees, is there?
Your left's a winter photo.
Yes, I know, but if there's no street trees at all, is there leaves on those trees?
There's a lot of ones leaning over on the one on the right from people's properties.
Fair enough.
Those ones are beautiful.
The developers are cutting them down.
Bloody evil developers.
Got a minute left, Aaron.
The question is, it was raised by Anne, and I thought it was quite a good point she made from Spokes around using some of those bollards at the corners where people are cutting through as a semi-confident cycle. What did you think of that idea for here?
I sort of think like, I mean, I find those streets, and there is like a few around Christchurch, I can't think of any off the top of my head, where you have all the equipment all over the road, actually doesn't make it feel safe for cyclists at all. What I find...
I don't think she's suggesting all the roads, she just meant at the corners where people cut through.
Yeah, sorry. What I'm sort of saying, getting to there, Aaron, is if we naturally make it slower rather than doing it with like equipment. So rather than sort of putting stuff all over the road, bumps and sticks and stuff, you actually slow it down naturally by making it narrow, putting trees around. I personally find those streets a lot safer. Like the streets with all the bumps and the painting and the lines, I actually find very confusing. And although I'm interested in bike lanes, as a cyclist and a motor vehicle driver, I find the one along Hagley Park extremely dangerous because it's not very normal pulling out of Hagley Park at the gates for you to look for cyclists coming both ways in the cycle lane. And I sort of find all that road science sometimes a bit contradictory to what it's actually really trying to do, which is to make our roads safer. And I sort of find that the roads that are narrower, more trees, you just naturally, you're going slower, and then you know, the chance of you getting hit are slimmer, and when you do, it's going to be less harmful, really. Yeah.
One last question on this one.
Thanks so much for your presentation. Just to summarize, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong. It sort of sounds like option 1, option 2, option 3. You don't really meet any of the criteria. Option 4, you were quite interested in because it looked at exploring, you know, what this would look like. So just, are you sort of saying that none of the options here today really hit the mark for you?
Yeah, I suppose I would say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I sort of think if you're going to lose car parking and get heaps of trees and get a lot of value out of it, then that should be considered. But you're going to lose car parks for all sorts of weird bollards.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's sort of like,
It needs a bit of recanvassing.
Yeah, just a finesse. I don't think it's not a no from me. I think you can achieve the purposes of what you're trying to do, which is incorporate road cycle lanes, reduce vehicle speeds, discourage heavy vehicle use, and resolve pedestrian safety issues by narrowing the road. So where that's 1, 2, or 3, yeah.
Cool.
Great, thanks very much. Thanks for coming on. That's really informative. Next up, we have Lester Chisholm. And just so everyone knows, at the end of the deputations, we'll just have a wee recess for 10 minutes. So if you need to grab a drink of water, have a wee break, we'll just do that, because obviously these will be going for quite a while.
Yes, good evening. I've lived in Glendowie Road for 25 plus years. And of course, like everyone here, I'm passionate about it and its future. Have you got my handout? Don't worry if you haven't. I'm essentially making 5 points. The first is that I support reduced traffic volumes, reduced speed, and increased safety, and I think we all do. I have raised this question of the 30 km/h limit. I noticed that the side roads are perhaps to be reduced to 30 kilometres. So I thought, if we really want to deter through traffic, which is really one of the big problems in Glendowie Road, increase the safety for everyone, including cyclists, reducing the speed limit to 30 km/h would be an ideal solution. Whether it's practical, over to you people. It might be a step too far, but it is certainly worth considering. The next point is the heavy vehicle problem. This has really been the catalyst, I think, for a lot of the concern about Glendowie Road. And the problem is that at the corner of Glendowie and Fendalton Road, it is not possible for large vehicles to turn left from Fendalton Road into Glendowie Road without difficulty. But that's the reality. And that's why I say that we should not have heavy traffic on Glendowie Road, except, of course, for deliveries within the road. The problem with the heavy traffic is not only the safety factor, and of course there is an increased safety factor for cyclists, but you've also got the problems of noise, vibration, and so on. And I'll just make another comment about that later. But I am opposed to the removal of parking. That is a giant step. It wasn't anticipated or initiated by the community. And I'd ask you to bear in mind that this, as the officer's report indicates, is a community-driven project. 49 submitters oppose the removal of parking. And you've heard, you will have read descriptions of alarming, ridiculous, madness, and so on. This, I think, indicates that so many of us were taken completely by surprise at the possibility that the parking for the whole of one side of Glendowie Road would be gone. The safety implications of no parking and no stopping on one side of Glendowie Road are huge, and you will know about them. But what if someone wants to drop children at the front gate of someone else's property on the western side of Glendowie Road? They're going to have to do a U-turn, aren't they? And then they have to take the children across the road and then go back to their car. So I'm just asking for some common sense here to assess the dangers of the proposal to eliminate parking and, as I say, stopping on one side of the road. A factor that's already been touched on is the removal of an existing amenity outside ratepayers' home, and James Wilding touched on that. It's something that people are generally entitled to expect, and if it is to be removed, there needs to be a jolly good reason. So that leads me to the next point. Cycle lanes can't, I suggest, justify the removal of parking. There's a low cycle usage, and that's indicated in the officer's report. And having lived there for 25 years and walked frequently in Glendowie Road, without overstating it, I can walk along the road on days and see no cycles at all. And I inquired of the council whether they had statistics about the accident rate, and asked for 5 years, 0 reported concerning cyclists. So in reality, we've got a low risk from cyclists. But when we add in these other factors, the risk becomes even lower. And in the end, I'm afraid, I think that we're actually driven by staff ideology about cycle lanes. If you did a cost-benefit analysis as to the justification for cycle lanes in Glendowie Road, I think you would find pretty conclusively that they simply weren't justified. And can I just pause here to say that the idea of narrowing Glendowie Road, I thought was quite brilliant. It solves so many problems. Whether it's feasible for you is another thing. Now, the next point is that, as I understand it, there would be cycle lanes in Idris Road, and they would provide the link to Fendalton Road. And I simply ask the question, if there is that link, why duplicate it? Why add unnecessary cost to the project by having cycle lanes? And now I come to the question of options. The staff said that there were 3, and I quote their words, reasonably practicable options. Now, this blatantly ignores the options sought by a large proportion of the community. 49 submitters have said, no, we don't want to have parking removed. So I simply can't understand why deleting parking, the removal of parking and cycle lanes is not a reasonably practicable option. And to the extent that the officer's report is trying to assist you, I don't know why that option hasn't been put forward. I'm also concerned that there's no advice about the safety implications of removing the parking for the whole of one side of Glendowie Road. And nor is there any explanation as to why the banning of heavy vehicles is not possible. And quite by chance, this afternoon, I came across an email, and this is in 2022, in which the traffic engineer said to my neighbour, and I became involved in this correspondence, and I share this with you with my neighbour's consent. He's sick, otherwise he would be here. But it was a question of heavy vehicles risk, giving rise to risk not only to the traffic lights, but to pedestrians on the corner. And our neighbour had been in touch with the council to say that he was very concerned about the heavy vehicles turning left from Fendalton Road into Glendowie Road. And the traffic engineer said to Roger, and he copied me into this, in addition, heavy vehicles are proposed to be banned on Glendowie Road for deliveries, but this is included in the other project. The other project was the proposal to do a complete overhaul of Glendowie Road. So the traffic engineer at that time obviously had in mind to ban heavy vehicles, and I simply don't know why it's gone off the agenda. There doesn't seem to be any technical reason why it couldn't be done. And then the final point is this suggestion that the pedestrian crossing at the lights on Glendowie Road, at the corner of Glendowie Road and Fendalton Road, should be moved. I simply don't understand what the purpose would be to move that pedestrian crossing, because pedestrians have a clear sight view, and I think the point's already been made by James Wilding, I don't need to repeat it. But there is another reason. It probably breaches an Environment Court decision which arose when the lights were being installed in Glendowie Road, and the layout of that intersection was ultimately determined by the Environment Court. And my deceased wife was actually the person who took the thing to the Environment Court. So I would say to you that remove the requirement, the proposal for parking to be taken off the whole of one side, remove the cycle lanes, and don't change the pedestrian crossing. And that's a simple solution. In every other respect, I think this is a great proposal, and we should go for it.
Great. Thank you very much. Don't have any time for questions, but that was really informative. Thank you very much. Next up was Brent Woods.
Right. Just asking you to grab one and pass it around, please. All right, thank you. So some really good points have been made so far, which have destroyed my notes. But basically, I completely oppose the removal of parking bays. The parking, that's essential, but just following on from Lester's point, we do, the heavy traffic that runs down Glendavie Road, now, that is primarily based off GPS. Everyone's aware that professional truck drivers, courier drivers, Uber drivers, most businesses run GPS in their vehicles. GPS always finds the fastest way anywhere. So heading down Fendalton Road, heading into town, it will flick you up Glendavie rather than send them to Idris Road. Simple way, short-term solution, slow the traffic on Glendavie Road, which will then change the GPS modelling, which will then force vehicles Idris. Other thing you should consider is the green turn arrow off Fendalton Road, which goes left into, Fendalton Road left into Glendavie. That green arrow is green most of the time. If that sequencing were reduced, you could squeeze that, just the timing on that arrow to make it less efficient to run down Glendavie Road. And all of a sudden, the whole GPS modelling of the roading network gets affected and you start to push heavy vehicles off Glendavie Road. So I've got that off my chest. I'll start at the beginning. Hey, my name's Brent. My wife, Carl, and I, we own the properties on the corner of Glendavie Road and Fendalton Road. I'm a civil engineer. Started my career on road safety improvement work 35 years ago. I was the operations manager for SCIRT for the rebuild in Christchurch. I then went on to run design and build construct contracts for wind farms and irrigation schemes. This hit my desk on about Tuesday last week. So just running, there's a bit of background. So I do talk with a little bit of technical credibility. Running through this, yes. So we've talked about heavy vehicles a little bit, but the commute, the reason I've passed the plan round, in the middle section, you will see I've got, that's a screenshot from Saturday's latest TDC cycle map. And you see to the north, there are good cycle lanes that link to Papanui, and from Fendalton Road South, there are good cycle lanes that link to Rickenmore. There is a gap. The gap is Idris Road. Now, if council wanted to complete the link from Papanui to Rickerton, they should put cycle lanes down Idris Road from one end to the other. The current proposal only runs cycle lanes from Glendavie Road to Fendalton Road. It still leaves a gap. So we still haven't completed the link of the circuit. The completion of a link down Glendavie Road makes a circle. There is no school on Glendavie Road. There's no, there is no destination on Glendavie Road. So, so Idris Road is, by my view, straight away looking, this is the key route to complete the link for cycle lane traffic in Christchurch. So fundamentally, so where I started was the, currently I believe the cycle lanes in Glendavie Road work very well. I ride to work, and even by council's own records, 80% of the time, there are no car parks in the car parked areas. So you only have to negotiate a car 20% of the time. You've got a 4 metre wide traffic lane between a car park and the centre line of the road. The car's 2.5 metres wide. A wide load, so you could get a 1 metre bike lane in with a 3 metre car lane. It fits within the current footpath. So I think there is the real opportunity to do a little bit more investigation in here, maintain all the parking on both sides of the road, and with line marking, I don't even think you need to line mark it, because line marking encourages the cycle to travel in the lane rather than, if there's no car parks, the bike moves over. Car comes, they move out. While they're moved over, they've just increased the gap significantly to the truck or the car or the ambulance or the fire engine that we get down that road. So by putting a cycle lane in, I think we've just forced all our cycles closer to the moving traffic for more than 80% of the time. So we should consider that. We can talk about consultation feedback, because I think you're probably well aware now of 120 organisations that have been consulted with. 21 haven't actually passed a view back to council. But so that leaves 99 people to review. Of those 99 people, 74% were opposed to it. So currently we have a scheme that 75% of the community are opposed to. 25% are in favour of. I'm opposed, but with some rejigging of it, with getting it to work, I would be in favour, and it's not a big step. The three options that were put up being do nothing, which is embarrassing, doing the full Monty, which no one likes, or a little bit less. It's wrong. We just need to have some pragmatic thinking of what do we want to get. We've had some very generous offers from the room about plantings and things like that. Why are we not grabbing that sort of thing? I've got some technical knowledge I would love to share, which I've been trying to talk to council at some time over. And I think we could build a really good road. We could slow down the traffic. As soon as we slow down the traffic once, the GPS mapping changes. And we end up with the Glendovie Road we're meant to have. We change the lights. Just a comment on the current proposal. If we stick with the current proposal with the 5 medium crossing for pedestrian refuges, do you realise if you bowl up to someone's house and you want to visit on the side of the road, you park, you walk 65 metres down the footpath to the nearest pedestrian refuge. There is no parks within 65 metres of the pedestrian refuge. So you park there, you walk your 65 metres, you waddle across the road, you walk your 65 back to drop your kids off. But if you could park in front of it, you can drop your kids off, you can pick up your mother. So by taking out the parking on one side of the road, you have just generated a whole new raft of safety concerns. Your dog jumps out the car, runs to your house, he jumps in, whoops out on the road. You know, there's all sorts of safety issues you've caused by taking out the parking. My mother-in-law, when she comes to my house, which we encourage, she will not park on the other side of the road. And the reason she won't is because when she parks on the other side of the road, she comes down the road, hits the Fendalton Road, Glendovie Road traffic lights, crosses. She gets 15 seconds. She's had both hips and both knees replaced. It takes her 23 seconds across the road. I timed her. When she gets midpoint of the live lane, the green turn arrow goes for everyone coming off Fendalton Road. So now when she comes to our property, we send someone out to escort her across, and they go out and they smile and wave at the approaching traffic. So, you know, like if we take the traffic out on that side of the road, she has nowhere to park. And I'm sure there are other people down the northern side of Glendovie Road who have aging friends or parents or who it all affects. So just bear in mind, they can't cross the road that fast. The idea of her using a pedestrian refuge is just not an option. So there are probably lots of things to cover, but I would strongly recommend we look at the sequencing of those lights. We look at restricting the traffic around that corner. We narrow the road. That's been said once before. The fundamental reason people speed up is because their environment gets too wide. You've seen cars at passing lanes. Every time they accelerate. What we're doing by taking out the parking on one side of the road, we have left the curb and channel where it stands now. We have widened the environment. People will naturally speed up. So choking the intersection, leaving the parked cars in there restricts it, plant some trees, fantastic idea. Put some physical, natural amenity in at the same time.
That's great. I think we've got a little bit of time for questions there, which a couple of people might have. So we'll, Suresh, you want to?
One question about the relation of the green left arrow from Fendalton to Glendovie.
Yes.
I use both the roads, so I'm very familiar.
Yes.
The left turn lane is a very, very short lane.
Yes.
And if you are restricting the free left movement,
yes,
it means you are blocking the Fendalton Road left lane heading towards the city. Just want to invite you to comment.
So yes, you are, but you're not. Because ultimately, people who are using Glendovie Road as a shortcut, we want to knock that out. If you reduce the people that can turn at that intersection, they will go down to Idris Road, which is the main intersection, which is the main arterial that you're trying to push the traffic onto. So they will go left at that one. They will soon learn after a month, go, I'm sitting in that queue, I'll go to the next one, it's faster. That's the reason you choke the arrow.
It's the queue.
Yeah, Bridget?
Thank you, Brent, for your presentation.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm just trying to understand is you're comfortable with there potentially being a queue if it means it will slow down traffic.
Slow down traffic, it will change the GPS algorithm, it will force people to Idris Road, so the algorithm will then go Idris Road. Now, council do not want heavy traffics down Glendowie Road. The pavement is failing now, and as soon as it becomes a heavy vehicle road, your pavement construction costs increases significantly because you have to build it for trucks. So the more trucks you keep off it and keep on designated roads, the cheaper your assets become and your maintenance becomes.
Yeah. So you see a queue being the lesser of evils.
The queue will diminish because the people who live down Glendowie Road will put up with it, or in that area, the other people will go, oh, I'm just trying to pass through to get somewhere. I'll pass on and I'll go to Idris Road.
I just have a quick question. Clearly, the heavy traffic is a big problem. Somebody suggested signs, so in your opinion, obviously, the stopping of the arrow would be better.
Yes, there's already signs.
There's already signs to say no.
Correct, those signs have been up.
They've been up for quite a few years.
10, at least, since we've lived there. So if you go, you're going down Fendalton Road.
So are the signs, they're just when you turn the corner?
No, they're further back. They're at the intersection, back at the intersection of we dead end street that takes you through to the park.
Snowdon.
No, sorry from maybe Thornycroft. Yeah, so the signs have been up, and I'm also a heavy truck, have driven trucks. You don't look for a sign. No. You're following the GPS. You're trying to navigate a truck and trailer in 2 lanes of traffic around a corner. You're committed.
Right. Yeah. Thank you very much. That was very informative. Yeah, that was great. Okay. Thank you. Sure. Hayley Barrett.
There's been some good points raised today. I'm probably not going to raise any or present any good points, more just a plea about the parking. My name is Hayley Barrett. I've lived on Glendowie Road for 5.5 years. I have 3 children who've taken themselves to 4 different schools in the area by bike, scooter and walking. My husband and I walk our dog every day in the area, so I feel like I know something about what the roads are like. I'm against this plan. My preference would be to leave Glendowie Road as it is, mostly due to loss of car parks, which you can see my argument for on the PowerPoint presentation, but also because I think it's unnecessary. The plan is being presented as safety improvements for Glendowie Road. At the time of submissions, I asked for information from council on the number of accidents involving cyclists or pedestrians along Glendowie Road. As given this is an upgrade due to safety, surely there would be information on this. The information was difficult to obtain, although verbally I managed to ascertain there had been no car versus cycle or car versus pedestrian accidents on Glendowie Road in the past 5 years, and only a handful of car versus car accidents, less than 5, I believe. None of this important information is addressed in the report that's being tabled today, which seems like a huge gap in the information being presented. If the road is not unsafe, why do we need to spend almost $1 million making it safer? If we haven't assessed the danger, why have we spent money on concept plans and consultation before knowing if there is an actual problem? It is disappointing that a report on safety improvements contains no real evidence or facts on why improvements are needed and is instead based on feelings and opinions. It seems these changes are being driven by the local residents group. However, having lived on Glendowie Road for over 5 years, it was a huge surprise to me that we even had a residents group, let alone that they were speaking on behalf of me and pushing for these changes. As a resident, I have never once been consulted by them on this matter. My neighbours had also never heard of the group. It's frustrating that this group purports to have knowledge of the community without actually asking the community. I would ask that the board considers this when making its recommendation today, as I do not believe the community group speaks for the majority of residents on the street. In relation to why I don't want these changes, there are a number of reasons. Firstly, the 3 sets of neighbours that live directly beside me are all retired. I hesitate to use the term elderly because none of them really fit that mould, but in reality, that is what they are. By removing all the car parks in front of their houses, you're expecting their visitors and them, their visitors, which are often elderly people, to walk a long distance to come to visit. At our end of Glendowie, there will be just 2 car parks for about 12 houses, and these are on the other side of the road. Despite the belief that islands will make it safer, when you live halfway between the islands, the reality is they won't be used, and we will instead have residents and visitors from the west side of Glendowie now crossing a road that they never had to cross in the past. Why don't they just have friends pull into their driveway, I hear you say? Well, the first 3 houses on my side of the road have no or very little driveway. To park a car there would also have it parked across the footpath, impeding pedestrians. Why do a few people on bikes get more consideration in this matter than the people who are directly affected by these changes? Please consider what you are asking of residents when you remove parking, especially in an area where the majority of people are retired or approaching retirement. What about when residents need a plumber to fix a leaking pipe or an electrician to get the heat pump working, an ambulance, a courier package delivered? With no on-street parking and limited access to driveways, contractors will have to park on Thornycroft and walk their tools to our homes. Couriers will have to carry packages or, more likely, park illegally. For those families with young children or grandchildren, they will not be able to be dropped off after school or sporting activities outside their home. They will need to be dropped much further up the road, or if there is a close car park, it will be across the road, meaning we will have young children crossing a road they didn't need to cross in the past. Again, I ask why the option with a positive submission rate of just 21% in favour of these changes gets greater consideration than the clear majority of respondents who were not positive about cycle lanes. It's usually disappointing that the recommendation being considered today is the option the majority of residents are against, with the large percentage citing loss of parking as their main reason. The report notes that going ahead as recommended would bring a risk that the local community would perceive council has ignored the community's concern around loss of parking spaces. Let me be clear, this would not be a perception, it would be a fact. When a very clear majority takes time out of their busy lives to tell you they do not want to lose their on-street parking and do not want cycle lanes, and you go ahead anyway, the only thing you are doing is ignoring us. It is also frustrating that you take the build it and they will come mentality in 6.3, where you state that doing nothing will deter people from cycling along Glendowie Road. The changes being suggested here today are not a necessity. If the decision was taken to do nothing, cyclists would still have a cycle lane they could use on Fendalton Road, which joins with the cycle lane beside the railway and the rest of the cycle network. If they don't want to use Fendalton Road, Jeffreys Road is very quiet and wide and also connects with the railway cycle lane. I also need to point out that the supplied results for the February cycle survey in the report contain a mistake that must be taken into account. During the survey, Glendowie Road was split into 3 zones and each cyclist was counted within each zone. These numbers were then added together to make it appear like there are up to 3 times as many people using the road as cyclists or pedestrians. This is cynical reporting of numbers at best. The actual number of cyclists over the busiest 2 hours of the day would be closer to 67 or 33.5 each hour, not the 199 listed in the report. I believe the number is inflated. It is certainly not indicative of most mornings or evenings on Glendowie Road, nor of any morning in winter or autumn. Whatever the numbers, this hardly seems like enough people using the area during rush hour to commit almost $1 million to cycle lanes. There are many other parts of the report that I disagree with, moving pedestrian crossing lights away from the corner so people using the crossing become unaware of what might be coming around that corner. But I'm aware that others need to speak on this and you probably want to go home soon. So I reiterate, as there have been no safety issues noted in the report and none made available, perhaps the street does not need them. Please consider not spending this huge sum of money on this and perhaps let it be spent where it is more needed, like on the east side of Christchurch, where they have been waiting more than a decade for road repairs, or even on the Pages Road bridge.
It's great, thank you very much. Any questions on that one from anyone? No?
So with your 3 kids that you encourage to bike and scooter and things, if it's reduced to 40k and you get the diagrams like the big trees and things, you'll be happy for them to bike on that road like that?
I'm happy for them to bike on it now, but my youngest is 15, although he has biked on that road since he was year 6. So,
right.
I mean, we're not talking about primary school kids, but he bikes to his friend's place going down Glendover Road and stuff now. So,
thank you.
Questions? No. Thank you very much. Next up is Don Pankhurst. Come and take a seat.
I was going to say good afternoon, but it's now good evening.
Almost morning.
I'm flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm the chairman of GISA. My predecessor, James Wilding, actually made quite a long speech and probably said most of what I was going to bring up. So I'll be fairly brief. I'd have to say that everybody that's spoken so far, there's been some excellent submissions, I think, all round. And hopefully some of these things are going to be taken on board. However, I'd just like to thank the Christchurch City Council for their considerable efforts over the past 7 years that in trying circumstances at times to help to resolve the issues GISA and residents perceive with primarily Glendover Road and to some extent Idris Road as well, because we represent both streets or roads, whichever you prefer. I would like to think we could all take a more pragmatic approach to partially agree with option 1, provided from our point of view, we can have more dialogue with the community board and council to see if we can compromise can result in a better outcome for more on-street car parking than is currently being proposed. Now, as you're aware, I mean, I don't have Lester Chisholm has already made the point, out of 117 submissions, 49 were totally against the removal of car parking in Glendover Road and to some extent in Idris Road as well. So I won't go over all that again because you've already got that information. We reiterate the removal of car parking is a very serious problem, as the residents of Glendover Road especially are very concerned about. And that does need to be addressed in some form or another. Now, whether the community board is going to take this forward with the council or whether we have to keep knocking on the door, I guess that decision will be made tonight or in the next week or 2. Anyway, I've made a comparison on car parking, Wairaki Road, and a 1.9 kilometre stretch, have in total approximately, I mean, you can't count the car parks because they're not designated, so per se, 157 car parks from Idris Road to Greers Road, mostly in setbacks. Then we have Innes Road from Browns Road to Papanui Road, with parking on both sides of the road where the Innes Road narrows, parking on both sides of the road, no cycle lanes, until the road is laned for the traffic lights at Papanui Road. Now, I'm just making a comparison with a couple of streets there with Glendover Road. And also, I just have to, also in regards to the proposal of relocating the Glendover Road crossing at Fendalton Road intersection, personally, I feel this will decrease the line of sight for both pedestrians and cars and about bad outcome, I think, for everyone. As it is, I'd appreciate that the heavy traffic coming round from Fendalton Road into Glendover Road, which somehow should be banned, because I mean, they not only are they, I mean, I think they have taken out the lights on one occasion in the period of the last few years, but they also manning the curb, both on the curb in the middle of the road and the curb on footpath on a number of occasions. I know that in option 1, they intend to build a concrete up 100 millimetres with reinforcing, but that will take 2 or 3 days to knock down every time you put it up. I've seen it happen in other parts of Christchurch and it doesn't work. Anyway, that's by the by. In closing, I would point out, I missed something actually. Well, I thanked everybody for in closing, I'd point out that we've been resident in Glendowie Road for 19 years, and we've seen a huge increase in the volume of traffic using both Glendowie and Idris roads, with no consideration for the safety or well-being of the residents, in our opinion. With refuse islands, a large speed limit and better signage to deter heavy trucks and vehicles to use Glendowie Road West, we would like to think these roads will be made safer for all, hopefully with somewhat more car parking than currently being proposed. In closing, I'd like to say thanks to Mr. Woods and to Mr. Holloway and his partner and all the other people that have made submissions. I would probably change my thinking now after I've heard Mr. Holloway and his partner, what they perceived with planting and car parking and bike lanes all being able to be incorporated. I think is an exceptionally good idea.
Okay. Thank you very much. We've got time for a few questions. So, Bridget.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Don, for your presentation. I just wanted to ask, so having heard everyone's opinions, and you quite like one of the ideas that we've heard today, coming back to the concept of the street being narrowed.
Yes.
And that narrowing would make cause the speed to decrease and hopefully make the road safer as well. If that happened, do you think it would be necessary to have the different pedestrian refuges that have been suggested in option 1?
Well, I mean, if you look what Mr. Holloway and this part said and did the tree and thing, there would be no need for refuse islands at all, in my opinion.
All right. Thank you.
Question.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Fantastic. Thank you very much. All right. That was the end of all our deputations. Do we have one more?
At the beginning, do you want to do it later?
Oh, yes, Ray and Mary Sefton, you didn't want to speak. Did you want to? He's gone? Okay. All right. So I guess not. With that, we will take a wee recess for, we'll just say 5 minutes or 10, just 5 minutes, just for everyone to get a bit of fresh air if they'd like, and then we'll start again at 6:30 and things moving. That was mine. Oh, did you pull that?
Yeah. No, it's all right. I'll just say
in mid submission.
If it's Jason, I'm comfortable with you playing now.
Right, we'll resume the live stream and kick the meeting back off. We'll just wait, is that good? We're all good? Okay, we're live stream's back online. So now just quickly, it was part 6 of the agenda, which is presentation of petitions. And we have no petitions presented, so we can move on to part 8, which is the staff reports, and that's the Glendowie Road, Idris Road safety improvements. So would the team presenting like to come up, please? We have Hannah, Lauren, Gortam, and Jacob. Yeah. Right, where do you want to start?
It's going to be brief. I'm Lauren Boyce. I'm the project manager for this project. We have Hannah Ballantyne, who's the communication and engagements person. Jacob Bradbury, the transport program manager, and Gautam, who's one of the designers who worked on this project. Basically, we're just going to take the report as read and then just be open to questions.
Great. Don't want to go through 80 odd pages and.
No.
All right. No, that's great. We can definitely do that. And Bridget, you want to start us off with some questions?
Yeah. James Wilding mentioned in his deputation about why is the pedestrian refuge being moved on Fendalton Road? But then he was also sort of asking, is it being moved? What's the answer there?
Is that the one near the traffic lights he's referring?
Yes. Yeah.
Actually, at the moment, it is like a bit, it's not straight. There's a bit of it's kind of a little bit of a V shape. It's not a full V, it's a slight V, but we are not moving it heavily. It's being straightened up a bit.
Oh, okay.
As I said, even if we can look at the aerials, there is a slight V shape thing. It's at an angle, so we are just straightening it up a bit.
So it's not moving?
It's kind of at the same location.
Great. Great. That's one question there. The other question is, so Brent Woods explained in his deputation around, could we look at shortening the left turning green arrow from Fendalton to Glendowie? And I just wanted to know, like, one, can we do that? So the green arrow is not on long enough, like it's shortened. So that way there, it may have an impact on GPS tracking. So one, can we make that arrow change? Is that possible? And two, would that actually have an impact on the GPS tracking to avoid people using Glendowie as a thoroughfare?
The answer is yes, we can change it. The answer is I have no idea how Google's algorithms work. So that's the honest answer. I suspect it probably would.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Okay. Cool. And then last question. What did I have here? Sorry, I'm just reading my notes. So I guess, is staff open to the idea? Because we've heard a lot of different, we've heard a range of people, but we've heard a message loud and clear, which is this idea that none of the options that we have today are really cutting, the mustard to actually meeting what needs to happen. Which is around keeping car parks while keeping the road safer. So is there an option for staff to look at some of the options that we've seen today? One in particular looking at coming up with a way to narrow the street, whether that is through the specific example we saw from what Chris and Vincent had around the tree berms and the cycleway, or something similar. So it allows for amenity value to still be there. And it just creates the street to be narrowed. Is that something that staff would be open to?
We can look at it. My initial gut feel is that because it involves moving curbs, it's likely to be expensive because it'll have an impact on things like drainage, utilities and so on. So I'm not ruling it out. We haven't done any work. But I suspect it'll be quite expensive.
Yeah, and just final question, would narrowing a street help actually makes traffic slow?
That's usually how it works.
Okay, great.
That's the general principle of lots of things we do. I would note particularly Idris is a minor arterial, so it does serve a function for large vehicles. So there's only so much you can narrow it.
Yeah.
It's not like some of the tiny local streets. I mean, the one that they put up, what was it, Chester Street West?
Yeah.
That is a local road within the central city. So you have more options with those kind of local roads than you do with these that serve a wider network function.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Aaron, and then Teresa.
So looking at the signs around the truck signs, Glendowie Road, not suitable. It's not a heavy vehicle ban, is it? That's just we suggest you don't go this way, but you can if you want.
Yes, you're right, yeah.
Why can we not change it?
I can't remember.
There's in other places, like there's over in Kashmir and things like that, where it's just a heavy vehicle ban.
So we did look at this, probably two and a half years ago, and I'm sorry, off the top of my head, I cannot remember the reason why we ruled it out. And so I can come back to you with some advice on that, because we have looked at that in the past.
Yeah, because that kind of would solve that problem, because then if we do the 40K and then the other one is around the 30 versus 40. Because it was suggested by someone. Do you want to answer the 30 versus 40?
30 versus 40, we don't have the power at the moment. Until the speed limit rules are changed by central government, we're not in a position to change speed limits. So we may be able to come back to you in 2 or 3 months with different advice, but at the moment we can't change the speed limit.
Okay, and then finally, if we could get a heavy vehicle ban and then the speed changed, do we have camera technology that can kill 2 birds with 1 stone? Because as soon as you say camera enforced heavy vehicle ban, no one uses it.
Yeah. We don't have power to do speed enforcement as council.
Right.
So that is, I think it's still police, or is it NZTA now? I can't remember. It's definitely passing from the police to NZTA, but it's certainly not something we have direct power over. So
about the gear to do
it. I suspect there are cameras that do it. I'm sorry, I haven't looked into it, but yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Is it Trish?
Short question, but maybe a difficult one. You heard so many submitters. You had to rewrite an amendment to your report. What would it look like?
I'm sorry, that's not really a question we can answer. At the moment, we've been set some objectives that came from various meetings with Giza and the chief exec and some people who sit around this table. There are a whole set of things they looked at. Some got ruled out quite early, some have come through, and that's the objectives that we're trying to meet with this project. So if we set different objectives, we can come up with different solutions.
Good answer.
Couple from me. Well, one from me, and then I'll hand over to David. The question from Brent about the timing of the pedestrian crossing and not the flashing lights with his, I think, elderly mother potentially crossing and just running out of time when the green arrow goes. If that's purely a phasing thing, the green arrow and the pedestrian timing, that can be aligned, can't it?
Where are we talking? This is Glendowie, Fendalton.
Yeah, it just sounds like the time for people to cross, the 23 seconds, I think, was the time that was mentioned, and it was only like 15 seconds is the actual phasing at the moment. That and the green arrow could be considered in conjunction.
Possibly. I mean, this project was trying to go from Fendalton to
the whole way,
and this is about the intersection at the end. If the community board wants staff to look at the timing on those lights, we can definitely do it and come back with advice. I couldn't tell you today.
No,
and it's not my teams that look after that, but it's certainly something we could look at.
No, that's cool. And another one was like flexi posts on the left bends. Would that be something? Is that something which is done? And is there any reason why we couldn't request that as a board on those left bends as some of the residents and submitters raise?
I'm sure they're in other places, but the one that's near me is on Kashmir Road, and they replace them about once every 2 or 3 weeks.
So they get
wiped out all the time.
Yeah.
Just put one metal one in the middle.
Yeah.
That isn't a real suggestion, by the way.
But so there's nothing stopping us, but obviously there's a bit of an
that's quite a large maintenance issue. It has environmental impacts because obviously they're plastic and they go down the drains and into the rivers and so on. We can certainly provide advice on that. I know that in other places they've looked at sort of rubber type separators.
Yeah.
Again, they have their own problems. Yeah, I'm not saying no, but we'd have to come back with some advice.
No, that's all good.
Is any of this is all funded by CCC, or is there any opportunity for Transport New Zealand to tip in?
This is CCC funded, yeah.
And just the comment was made earlier around the survey that we were counting cyclists 3 times. Do you have any comment to that?
I'm sorry, I haven't got any comment at this
I'm not sure what I
stage.
meant by that.
Yeah, we need to go away and relook at what was said and then look at our survey.
Okay. Questions from anyone else?
I've got one more question.
Yep.
Just in the report, it talks about option 4 and the idea of, looking at trees, working with Mr. Holloway and the generosity of using some funds to help with that. It seems like it makes so much sense to be working with the community and for this to be collaborative, but I understand that there were issues around it. I know this was sort of looked at maybe with more in depth, we could look at what other options there are, but the reasoning for not being able to have trees in those areas, what was that reasoning?
Primarily, it was the location of services. Also, this project looked at reallocating road space, so there was no real change to curb alignment and things that just suddenly ramps the cost up. If we're going to start putting in trees within the roadside, we might have to start altering curbs and things. So the advice we got from our landscape and arborist teams was that we could not put trees anywhere on Glendowie Road. I think there were some locations they identified potentially on Idris, but still there were few locations.
Right. So if we were to say, again, I keep pretending like we're going back to that photo that we saw, that's a different situation where services may not impede the root structure of a tree because it's a build out on a road.
Or if you're doing a complete rebuild of a road, you can move those utilities potentially depending on what utilities they are. So it depends on the job you're doing and the options that you have. Yeah.
But this project is primarily like some paint on the road and some refuges in the middle. So we're not changing curbs on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Question from me then. Now, we may have the prior pricing indication in here, but I've lost off the top of my head, obviously 80 odd pages. Where does the majority of the costs come from in the construction moment? Because if there were some amendments or changes we're wanting to suggest with the feedback from the community that we've got, we're saying obviously if we're adding or curbing, they'll potentially increase the cost. But with some of the changes, if adopted as the residents and submitters were keen on, would we be able to like offset that with some of those changes? I'm just keen to understand roughly where most of the costs will come from with just option 1.
We did have, so we've got some costings. I haven't got them on me at the moment, and it does sort of break it down to show you how the costs have been built. If you wanted, we could probably go back and.
It'd just be good to understand because obviously they're not all in isolation. Like might want to do this, but that might mean less of this, and then actually we might end up in a cost neutral position.
Yeah.
But no, it would be good if we can find that stuff out. Questions? Anyone else? Or if no one else has any burning questions, shall we open it up for some debate, a bit of discussion?
We've heard some very passionate people in the here today, presenting lots of good ideas. Everything from sort of signage, increased planting. Clearly, there is a very strong voice around increased safety within the community. Also, aesthetic or environmental needs, I think, is strongly being emphasised. I'm sort of thinking that perhaps the plan is not quite fit for purpose, and that we could, the idea of actually asking the team to go back, leave the report sitting on the table tonight, and then go back, look at some, tweak it, massage it, refine it, and then come back with maybe some new ideas. So I'd be happy to put that forward as an idea.
Discussion point up, Aaron and then Suresh.
Yes, I think if we're asking the staff to do that, we should be really clear on some of the stuff, like the loss of parking is overwhelming, the one that has got to be changed. So And then I think almost the entire room saw the pictures of the trees being added. Seems to be a bit of a winner. So we need some information on that. If that is ruled out, then let's find out. But let's go down that road. So those two would be the two from me that staff are looking at, because one's a winner and one is a big no-no from the submitters. Would be good. Thank you.
Suresh?
Yeah, just adding to what Aaron says, I think loss of parking is a big no-no, as we have heard. Converting the whole street to having double-sided cycleways also does not seem to have the favor from the community. But they want to make it safer, slower speed, less heavy vehicles, do some things naturally to achieve that, whether it is tree planting, whether it is other examples. But I think there is clearly some more work to be done.
Would we be going for less heavy vehicles or no heavy vehicles?
Well, Jacob's going to come back to us on the reason last time. Just on that, Jacob, if we could ask whether for heritage preservation, that could be the reason, that could be our trigger for the legally why we might be able to get that across the line. Would be my one request. I don't think we did that last time. We just asked for no heavy vehicles, but I think because it has been raised a number of times that they shake the older houses, and you don't keep your heritage if you eventually shake it apart. So that we can ask that question of legal would be good.
Yeah.
I'm in support of just wanting to lead with what David has sort of kicked off at the start, and just wanting to add a few more comments as to why I'm in support. So someone mentioned before very eloquently that with so many people showing up to present a deputation, people have very busy lives. The fact that they are here today shows that the community is activated and they care about this, and the options that we have today just haven't quite hit the mark, which means it's important that we not rush this process, but at the same time, given that we want to make this cost effective and work in with other projects that are existing in its pipeline, but that this leaving it on the table gives the staff some time to actually look at different options. So just adding to the point that, yes, we have seen one option, a visual option, that Chris and Vincent had in their deputations, but I want to go so far as to say that even if that option isn't available, what are other options that could be similar? So it's not just this can work, this can't work. So we can actually see a range of options and a range of costings as well. So there are different costs, because you've mentioned that it's going to be costly. So what could some cheaper options look like, but still manage to capture safety and amenity? It's also very clear that, from Giza, representative from Giza, that option one, while safety measures were looked into, there seems to be appetite that if the narrow road can actually create a safer environment, then is there need for those pedestrian refuges? And the fact that Giza are keen to explore that. And I think the most important piece here is there's a real opportunity for collaboration and for this to be a great example of listening to our community. Because obviously the community feel like they haven't their ideas haven't been captured, and therefore that does suggest that listening hasn't been done, but that doesn't mean that it's not too late. And it also means coming back to that point around collaboration, of working together, especially with Chris and Vincent, where they so kindly have, offered to provide funding towards trees. So I just think this could be a great opportunity and a great example of if we could get this right with a bit more time and a bit more reviewing and some canvassing, then this could be a great example of what active citizenship looks like with creating a plan around people who have taken time to share their views and to implement those views.
Thanks, Bridget. Just from me, I'd like to mirror what everyone said so far. I think a lot of the common themes that we had were really keen on the idea for those trees. And if we look at removing the cycleway, at least on Glendowie Road. Now, I'm not sure what everyone's view is around Idris Road, but after the presentation from Brent, I was kind of compelled with the way that map, that view said that it actually made sense to have that Idris Road there, that link. And, if we retained some of the pedestrian islands there, retained the cycleway on Idris Road, looked at, when possible, reducing the speed limit on Glendowie Road and finding ways to actually calm the traffic and stop those heavy vehicles, so we can actually get a result which, by different means and those different streets, achieve both of the outcomes that we're looking for cyclist safety and for the residents that live in the area and have to kind of deal with whatever we put in there permanently, that could be a good solution. So yeah, I'm quite in favour of retaining the pedestrian islands on both roads, the traffic calming measures, trying to ban heavy vehicles if we can, reducing the speed limit to 40. And I think with those options taken on board and used as a guide to tweak the current design, I think we can end up in a position where, most people are happy with most things, which, and what we do can be a challenge at times. So I think it's potentially a really good win there. Yeah, so that's my spiel on that one. With that one, David, did you want to move?
Could we add one more thing into the request, if that's okay? Can we also look into the specific green arrow light phasing that Brent talked about, and maybe lengthening the crossing time?
Yeah, and just alongside, just to reiterate, with the view of potentially retaining the cycleway on Idris Road, some of the concerns that were raised about that, and again, people might plough through them, was the flexi pace on the post on that left-hand turn. People, especially right approaching the Glendowie Road, Idris Road intersection there, or some other means to create a slightly more protective barrier there, because I think there was a photo of a cyclist there with that truck kind of coming around the corner. So if there was some kind of way to improve the safety on those left-turn bends, especially if that's addresses what do we call it, a main thoroughfare that we can't slow down too much, that would be again a good safety improvement. All right, so then if no one else has any other debate there, yeah, Dave, would you like to add?
Extending pedestrian crossings in the green left arrow.
Yeah, from
Glendowie.
Yes.
The green arrow from Fendalton into Glendowie.
And it's not extending the green turning arrow, it was actually shortening it to discourage. Yeah.
So essentially having to stop more often.
Yeah.
So that slowing the speed times down to discourage the use of land over.
Yeah, that would be, yeah.
Get rid of extending and just.
Yeah.
Yep.
We also want to just note that we are aware that the road resurfacing on Glendowie has been delayed because of this project. And so we want to we're trying to provide as much clarity as we can around what it is that we're looking for based on the community feedback, so that this can be progressed as quickly as possible, because we don't want the road completely disintegrating on everyone and creating more work down the track. And also, I'd just like to highlight that this was a community project brought about by Giza, and with a lot of support from staff to find an outcome for the community after that roundabout was taken out. So I think, we are moving in the right direction, and I think we're just about there. And if we can, feasibly adopt a number of these recommendations, that will actually land on an outcome which, the vast majority of people are happy with, and I think that would be a great outcome. So.
Yeah, I think more a question for the staff. If this direction which you see on the screen gives you the clarity on where we want to go from here, so that then you can come back with the time frames and allow a decision to be made in not too distant future.
Yeah.
Can we,
One
one
more,
more thing?
one more.
Sorry. So you made a comment before about coming back to us with speed changes because it's not in your control right now because currently the government has hit paused on it.
Yeah.
Could we maybe just make a note that staff keep us posted about that, and so therefore if we wanted to, as a board, decide to change the speed, that could be possible, or should, I guess you'll just keep us across that.
Do you mind if I comment on that? From memory, the speed change wasn't part of this project anyway. It was complementary to it. It was being done by the Safer Speed project. So regardless of what happens with this project, if that starts happening again, then that project would pick it up.
Okay.
Aaron?
Just a general one. If we've got a problem with people hitting those bollard things on corners, Jacob, which I think you alluded to, can we experiment with putting in the ink dye that you put when you steal clothes in the top of each of them? And as you hit them, you're just going to have a big mark down your car that won't come out.
Love
It would, no, as soon as you advertise it, everyone will stop hitting them. Everyone will go, oh, yeah, no, we're not.
Might not even need to do it.
I probably need to do it. There you go. Oh, a few surprise ones.
Yeah, love it.
Work out which one it is.
I mean, in places like Auckland, they've experimented with things like big concrete ones, and they've ended up with cars hitting the end of them. And I've seen a photo. I mean, it was a slightly different situation, but I've seen a photo of a car literally on fire because it hit one, rolled down the road and caught on fire.
Right.
And the situation is slightly different because the speeds were slightly higher, but certainly you need to get them right. They can cause some pretty serious damage.
Last one, David.
Does that empower you to look at raised curbing and things around corners this here? And to bring in design elements which
What you mean, sort of like a curb nib?
Yeah. We talked about raised curbing. Does point B empower you to comment on that? Or do you need it to be investigating all options?
I mean, it's probably better if you want us to go away and provide advice, and it's probably better to explicitly write it down, and then it comes through as an action to us that we'll address.
Traffic calming measures to encourage lower speeding, operating speeds through all measures available.
Okay, what's that, David? Are you happy to move that option? Do I have a seconder for that? Second, Suresh. All right, all in favour?
All right.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
A lot of work and we really appreciate it. And thank you especially for all the residents that wanted to come in on that one. You're free to head home now for a cup of tea and we can move on with the rest of our agenda. Not you, not you.
I'd love to put those ink caps on those things. That'd be hilarious. Because you're not going to drive through them. It's the point. Is that because there could be someone there.
I've got a 1 sweet meal spare if you want a nibble. I like those. The almond ones are amazing. I thought being a hiker that you would have loved that type of stuff. Oh, they've still going.
Thank you, mate.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy to see you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, we can say good night. Right, item 9. The Strengthening Communities Fund application consideration. Well, do you want to at least come up and take a seat perhaps? Or no, you don't want to? Okay.
Already sorted it out. Everyone's
Maybe
already.
just summarise for us perhaps, just so
What summarise for the application?
So we're quite happy to take a look at this read. It was sent to you a number of weeks ago, so I know you've all had a good chance to look through it. And there was the opportunity to send any questions or things that you wanted clarified. We didn't receive any of those, so we take that as a good sign. Yeah, and all the staff that have assessed applications are sitting here if you do have anything, but
no last minute questions.
As always, good work.
Bridget, was that a happy to move?
It was actually just a thank you so much for all of the effort that you put in, and we know that you obviously a big part of us not asking questions because of the trust that we have with you reviewing all of them. So thank you so much as well for all of your hard work on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that we don't care.
I know, we know.
Actually, and I've said this ever since I got elected, is that you deal with those people all the time and you write those reports and put those recommendations in based on your best knowledge and the amount of money we have. So
Yeah.
it's always weird when boards go and rejuggle it. I find that very frustrating. Yeah, so thank you.
So I'm happy to move.
Right, Bridget, happy to move. David, happy to second.
Already.
That's fine.
All in favour?
Yeah.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much, team. Yeah, don't go anywhere yet. Number 10, the discretionary response fund, board projects.
thank you. Same situation. These are the projects that you as a board get us as staff to deliver for you throughout the year. You'll see that Culture Galore is there for one last year. So we are working to transition that event into Hagley Park. But we'd like to have one more go at Ray Blank just to kind of do a nice hurrah and give some time for the logistics of it moving to get work through. So, but apart from that, it's just things that you normally do each year. And we have added in that youth achievement event because it felt that that was actually a really successful.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yep, we'd look at doing that again.
I have one question if I can. The Culture Galore partnered with Riccarton, Hornby, Walsall. Do they contribute the same number?
So it's always been the same until last year, where we had to make some tweaks to the traffic management and it was a little bit more expensive. They actually put in 15 and we did 12. And so since we're doing it one more time, this time we've taken the hit and doing the 15 and they're doing the 12. So
what's the bigger thing?
Have a bigger flag.
Just taped up.
Awesome.
That's my sign.
Right,
Question.
Suresh?
Just a question from me about the Edible Garden Awards. Have all the boards started doing it?
we were one of the last boards to do it. So we've only done it once.
Yeah.
And we're alternating it between our community service awards and edible gardens. So this year will be edible gardens.
Great.
Happy to move.
Happy to move.
So there's some funding for the community liaison meetings and stuff like that. Is that catering and things like that? So why have we not done that for the principals one now that that's back on a regular cycle? Or could we add that in later on if it's?
That amount would cover.
Oh, it covers that as well?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet, yeah, it's easier.
It would be just open up, so Aaron.
I'd never call anyone that.
All right, Nicola, happy to move?
Yep.
Happy to see. Second to David, all in favour?
Aye.
Against?
I lost it this time.
Carried. Thank you, everybody. Number 11, you may depart. Number 11, the community board area report, Marianne.
Again, happy to take it as read and any questions. There's been some fantastic stuff going on. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Questions from that one, Bridget?
no, but just again, just a huge kudos for the event that happened at the for the Address Youth Challenges in Brynwa. It was fantastic, really great to be there, and I'm looking forward to the meeting tomorrow.
Great. All right. Happy to move.
Happy to second.
All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right, now, number 12, last item on the agenda, the elected members information exchange. Anyone have anything they need to share? Karen?
Well, mine's a bit of a shared question, and I raised this with Jason over the phone. It's around is the board doing any nominations for the civic awards? Are we putting any in as a board? Because there's one in our area, a guy, Mark Tier, I won't use names, but who works at the school and does the patrol and does all the sports and has worked with the sports clubs for decades. And we thought, and both of us know who he is, and not through both of us knowing him, but just completely different ways. And we wanted to nominate him for one of the, has it closed yet? Has it?
I think it's closed.
Oh, so I heard the ad on the radio last week and I thought, I'll raise it on Monday.
I think it's closed. Let me have a wee look. And normally, as elected members, you individually can nominate people.
Right.
I don't recall us ever as a board nominating.
Right. Okay.
They closed on Friday afternoon.
Yeah, that's
yeah. Oh, that was on the radio.
But we are having our community service awards in the coming year, so we'll put them up for that. But
It's the civics every year.
yes.
Let's do it next year then. Because you can't do both, I don't think.
Yeah, no, you can.
Oh, you can?
Do both. He's very worthy.
Okay, I will do it. Well, so the Wood's in then, Marianne, for when that comes up. Thanks.
David?
What's it called? Mansfield, no.
Number 4.
No. Talk within yourselves for a second. The
colour sounds like.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm making it idiot myself.
Kate Shepherd.
No, it's, the Holly Lee down here, and it's the trust that I sit on for the mayor.
McLean's.
Institute, yes. They have gone to Parliament to do a recent change in council around some of the statutory. So this is McLean's Island, McLean's Institute used to own Holly Lee. McLean's Foundation, Mansion, all that sort of stuff. So they own a significant amount of money, which is for the benefit of women who've fallen on hard times, and they're having some changes to the statute through central government around funding needs. So I just needed to report that. It's in front of Parliament at the moment. Update next month. Why? It was felt that because the principal income was through Holly Lee, where that was a rest home for ladies who had fallen on hard times. And they've now sold that. Right. And they've invested the money. So they're just having to do some
tidy up
compliance stuff.
Still the same intention.
Still the same intention, but the way in which they do it is slightly different. And the fact that their income streams are different. Not through.
It's not going to do one. They have to build another one, take all the money and build more.
Not their skill set.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you to Karen for sitting there again, because we had a successful Brindwood Burnside Community Network Hui last week, and heaps of organisation, and it really was a successful event. A couple of really nice guest speakers. Really good to find out what is available for our community. I must admit, I didn't know much about Kingdom Resources, so I did learn quite a bit. And I think we're looking at maybe a different time for the event so that other people can come as well, which will be great.
Early evening.
Yeah, early evening, and which would be really good. But no, I have to really say thank you to Karen. Fantastic, amazing. And everyone was really overwhelmingly positive about it. So thank you.
Thanks, Nicola. One from me, a little bit of a chunky one. So we've been working through for over a year now, this term, and almost into last term as well, the Radcliffe Road shared path, safety improvements, Blake's Road, connecting it to the Northern Line, that whole thing. And one of the big handbrakes we had on the project was previously there was a Kiwi Rail directive that Radcliffe Road and anything that was being done at Thompson's Road out the back of Belfast had to be done in conjunction with each other due to the length of the trains that they're potentially going to have. They're going to cross over both. But it's been confirmed that that's no longer happening. So we've been able to decouple those two projects from each other. And now we have a kind of, the council and Kiwi Rail have this understanding and they're working through the process to get the level crossing at Radcliffe Road progressed. But that, from the correspondence we have in Kiwi Rail, can be a 3 or 4 year process. So we don't want council staff to pause on the safety improvements on Radcliffe Road, waiting for that to be done. So what we're going to do is we would like to request a staff report or a memo on, is there any legal reason why we cannot progress with the Blake's Road end and the shared path up to the railway tracks where the level crossing will go, to provide a measure of safety for cyclists and pedestrians along Radcliffe Road, because there is a phenomenal amount of development going out at Spring Grove out the back of there, all the way from Belfast Road across to Radcliffe Road out the back, bordering along there, and there is no safe access way for people along Radcliffe Road to get to the super centre. You have to either loop all the way around Belfast Road, across the tracks, or walk along the side of the road. And the argument we've got so far is that we can't put a shared path up to the railway tracks because it will encourage people to cross the railway tracks. But the problem is people are doing it already. And the risk of people walking along the side of the road, in our estimation, is significantly higher than that of crossing the tracks that they already do. The other part is that the Thompson's Road pedestrian crossing over the railway tracks, as it was proposed, the cost estimates of that came in around $8 to $10 million. There's no funding in the LTP for it. So essentially, we're looking at the next board plan, the next LTP, finding $8 to $10 million, or that Aaron could do it for $500,000, he reckons. But even then, we don't have the funding for it at the moment. So we're talking quite a long period of time to get an access way over Thompson's Road, which would be the most practical and as the crow flies solution. But in the meantime, we're just really trying to see if there is a pragmatic solution we can get for that safety feature down Radcliffe Road. So we just work.
Which, if everyone's not familiar, is already in the LTP, has been for years.
2020.
As a board, we've tried to bring it in, tried to speed it up. So it's the shared path is scheduled and is budgeted to go there, but the hold-up's always been the railway line.
Thompson's would be pedestrian
over bridge. Yep, but it has to be a bridge.
Yeah.
They can't level crossing it, Rail won't do it anymore. Yeah. So yeah, just an update on this. So we've made a lot of progress and we've got a lot of clarity on what exactly the situation is. We had a meeting with the minister and the local MP for the area. And so, yeah, we've got that clarity, and now it's just a case of getting confirmation from council what we can do and when, just to try and get that sped up as quickly as we can. So I think we're making some good progress on that, and just want to update the board on it.
But you're asking for a formal response back?
Yes, yeah, we'd like to get a formal response back from staff on the legalities and whether it's a policy or whether it's, just because we've been told that they don't want to do that. But from our mind, the pragmatic approach from a safety perspective is it's safer to do it than not to. I'd hate to find out someone got clipped down there because they were riding along that busy road on their way to school, to the super centre or something like that, and there's just no
boom, there's no nothing.
There's no space on the side of the road for any seal it straight onto the gravel and into the grass. Yeah, so that was a big one for me. Anything from anyone else? Otherwise, we'll wrap things up. No? All right, well, we'll finish with the closing karakia. And then we will officially close the meeting.
We still must.
Yeah. Need to bring that up for us.
It's really on a guys today.
Had to work hard tonight.
It has. Scratch this one.
It's on our agenda. If everyone wants to go to page 183.
No, we've already minimised. Thank you, everyone. And with that, we close the meeting at 7:18 PM.
Well done, chairperson.
Yes.
Is that a record?